So today we are going to start with a fourth type of learning, that is operant conditioning. It was given by B.F. Skinner. Okay. There is a slight difference between classical conditioning and operant conditioning. In classical conditioning, man did not do any activity, yet he used to get the reinforcement. As we saw in the experiment, dog did not do any activity, but by the sound of the bell, the experimenter used to give him the food. There was no activity involved by the side of the dog. But in this operant conditioning, subject will have to perform some activity to get the reinforcement. So to get the reward or to get the food, the subject has to do something by his own, that is he need to operate to get the reinforcement. Okay. So he studied the conditioning voluntary responses which are under the control of animal or men. So what is the difference he studied in this conditioning was the voluntary response of the subject and the control of animal or the men, right? Then the subject will operate on the environment, hence it is called as operant. Because the subject is going to operate, that's why this conditioning is known as operant conditioning. And also sometimes this conditioning is referred to as instrumental conditioning. Okay, because in this type of conditioning, man or animal has to perform a task decided by the experimenter. So this type of learning is called instrumental conditioning. Here man cannot operate, or the subject cannot operate on the way he wants, but he has to do something that experimenter has decided. So that's why it is known as instrumental conditioning. Okay, so let's have what Skinner did in his experiment. So here Skinner prepared a puzzle box named Skinner's box. Okay, this box was specially designed for the rat. He did the experiment on the rat, and the experiment was in such a way, the puzzle box was made in such a way that rat could move freely in the box, but he cannot come out of the box. Okay. Also, he made a feeder outside the box on the above over here. Okay. Food would come from this box to the rat, and how it would come? The rat has to press the lever over here so that food can get displaced in the container over here. Okay, so this was the experimental box that he prepared. So what happened? Let's see in this experiment. The rat was hungry and he wanted the food. So at first he started roaming here, there, and scratching over here and there. But soon he by accident he pressed the lever and the food came in his box, in the container. Okay, so for the initial trials it was found that in first trial rat took 15 minutes to get the food pellet in his container, but in the second it took 35 minutes. Over here if you notice that the 15 then 35 minutes. Okay, so the time is not just increasing in a way, but it is a cumulative. Let's see further and we will understand it in detail. So then in third trial it took 47 minutes, and in fourth trial in 71 minutes. So it's not like it in first trial it took 15, then in 35, then 47, 7. It does not goes on increasing in way. Let's understand it. So this is a cumulative. We write it CFI, cumulative frequency. Okay, in first trial it was 15, then 35, then 47, and then 71. So to get the actual frequency, that is to get the actual time, we need to have some calculations. So first trial would be 15, so it would be 15 as well. Okay, then to get the exact minute of the second trial, we need to minus the first cumulative from the second one. So 35 minus 15, it's 20 minutes. Okay, we get 20 minutes. Then 47 minus 35, it would be 12 minutes. So 71 minus 47 would be 24 minutes. Okay, and in this way we come to know the actual minute that cat took in the several trials. So in first trial 15 minutes, in second trial 20 minutes, in third trial 12 minutes, and in fourth trial 24 minutes. So in this way the trials took place. But after several trials, the cat was able to immediately press the bar and get the food. He was able to press the bar and immediately get the food. Okay. So here we see that as the trial goes on increasing, the time to learn or the time to solve the problem goes on decreasing. Okay. So here bar pressing is an operant response and food is its reinforcement. So the pressing of the bar is operant. He is operating on that bar, and that's why it is known as operant response, and the food is known as reinforcement. Okay. And in the experiment, bar pressing response is instrumental in getting the food. Hence this type of learning is known as instrumental conditioning. Okay. Now there are some determinants of operant conditioning. We saw in last video some important features of classical conditioning, right? And here are some of the determinants of operant conditioning as well. Reinforcement. We saw that in classical conditioning as well that we require some reward to associate, that is conditioning means associating. So we need some reward to associate something with something. Okay. So here also there is a role of reinforcement, and we know that the food pellet were the reinforcement for the cat. So Skinner has told that there are two types of reinforcement, that is positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. We know that in positive reinforcement the subject would get some reward, but does that mean in negative reinforcement he would get punishment? No, negative reinforcement doesn't mean any punishment. What does it means as per the Skinner is negative reinforces stimulus which increases the probability of response when removed after the response. So if by systematically used, it can lead to desired response. So the negative reinforcement cannot be considered as a punishment, but it is a stimulus which increases the probability of a certain response. What happens in operant conditioning is the negative reinforcement is not used as punishment, but it is used to increase the probability of escape or avoidance response. What kind of responses we increase, the probability of what kind of responses we increase, that is escape and avoidance. Okay. So in Skinner experiment, what happens is, suppose the pressing of bar would have given relief from electric shock to the rat. Then to come out of a painful situation, the rat would have learned to press the bar. So what would be the negative reinforcement? If the box contained a electric shock and by pressing the bar the electric shock could be contained, then such reinforcement is called as negative reinforcement. What does negative reinforcement do is it increases the probability of escape or avoidance. Okay, it increases the probability of escape and avoidance response. Okay, so in positive reinforcement we get the reward for something, and in negative reinforcement we get escape or avoidance response. Okay, then reinforcement can be negative or positive, but it can be called as reinforcement only when it increases the probability of desired response in man or animal. Reinforcement can be negative or positive, but reinforcement can only be reinforcement if it increases the probability of desired response. The response we want, if that is increased by the reinforcement, then only then that thing can be called as reinforcement. Okay. Then in operant conditioning, Skinner tested the effects of reinforcement on cat by changing on the rat by changing the number, amount and quality of reinforcement, schedule of reinforcement, delayed reinforcement, etc., to see how effective the conditioning takes place. So what all changes he made in the experiment? He changed the numbers and amount or the quality of reinforcement. He changed the schedule of the reinforcement, like he delayed the reinforcement and so on. He took the various experiments on the rat. Okay. Then we have extension. Just as in classical conditioning we learned the extension, here also we have extension. If there would not be any reinforcement, then conditioning cannot happen. And if conditioning has happened because of reinforcement, then delay in reinforcement or altogether taking away the reinforcement will lead to unlearning of the event. Okay, let's see how it happens. So, when any learned response gradually becomes slow and ultimately stops, then it is called extinction. So, here is a basic definition of extinction. That is, when any learned response gradually becomes slow, that you have learned something but it becomes slow and ultimately it stops, then we call it as extinction. Okay. Now what happens is, if in Skinner box the rat has learned to press the bar to get the food pellet, we know that he learned to get the food pellet by pressing the bar. So now if the rat presses the bar again and again but food pellet is not given, then rate of pressing the bar is reduced and it also stops at the end. So what happened is, if the rat presses the bar and the reinforcement is not given, and then the rate of pressing the bar is reduced, means the rat will stop pressing on the frequency that he used to press when he learned the conditioning. Okay, and thus the conditioned operant response extincts, means the conditioned operant response that he learned during the trial would go at the end. Okay. Then stimulus generalization. We learned in classical conditioning that associating similar kind of stimuli as the test trial stimuli, like the sound of the bell was generalized with the sound of the electric buzzer or any similar sound. So that was a stimulus generalization. But in operant conditioning, stimulus generalization cannot happen because the box itself was a stimulus and no other stimulus was provided to generalize. Okay. Then there is stimulus discrimination, like the ability to discriminate between the stimuli given. Okay. So in operant conditioning, the experiment, the rat was taught to differentiate between two stimulus, that is presence of light and absence of light. So there was another experiment, means add on to the experiment the Skinner did was the presence of light and the absence of light. There two stimuli was given, and what he did was, in the presence of light, if rat pressed the lever, then only he would get the food pellet. But if in the light was not there, but the absence of light was there, and if the rat pressed the lever, there would be no food pellet. So after several trials, rat learned to discriminate between the stimuli. So when light was there, then only he would press the lever to get the food pellet, and he avoided pressing the lever when there was no light. So this is how the stimulus discrimination was taught to the rat. So over here we complete our fourth type of learning, that is learning by operant conditioning. Then we have fifth type of learning, that is learning by insight. So what does learning by insight mean? Learning by insight is a comprehensive process of learning, okay, in which animal or man have an abrupt or sudden realization, means they have abrupt or sudden realization of problem solution because of their own insight, means whatever they visualize in their head for as a solution of their problem, through by that they solve the problem. Okay. So the German Gestalt psychologist Wolfgang Kohler was the first to conduct the experiment which led to development of first cognitive theories of learning. So learning by insight is the first cognitive theories of learning, and it was given by German psychologist Wolfgang Kohler. Okay. So what he did was, he did some experiment on chimpanzees. Okay. We will see what he did. Let's have it. So Kohler's experiment on chimpanzee. So according to the principle of evolution, we know that lower level animals learn by imitation, means they copy others, but in higher level animals, learning can take place because of insight and conditioning. Okay, so we did some insight, we did conditioning on cat, we did conditioning on dog and also on rat. So we know that the lower level animals learn by imitation, that is by observant learning, but higher level animals can learn because of insight and conditioning, and that's why Kohler choose the chimpanzees because they are higher level of animals and they have similar brain structure as of humans. Okay, so he gave them certain simple to certain simple to difficult problems to solve, and let's see what happened in it. So what he did was, in the first experiment, he experimented with the one stick. He took the chimpanzee and he made a cage, and he put that chimpanzee in that cage. And far away from the cage, he kept a bunch of bananas, right? And he gave that chimpanzee a stick in the cage. Initially, what chimpanzee did was, he put out his hands out of the cage to get the bunch. He threw out his legs and he stretched the bars and everything. But he was not successful. So he went on to sit in the cage. But suddenly he took that stick to play. And suddenly he got an insight that that stick can be used, and so he stuck out the stick outside the cage and he pulled the bunch of the banana, and in this way he solved the problem. So here we see he did not imitated anyone because there was no one to show him how to use the stick, but suddenly and abruptly he got the idea that the stick can be used to get the bunch of the banana. So this was the first experiment with one stick. Okay, then there was experiment with two sticks. What in this experiment Kohler did was, he kept the two sticks in the cage, and the two sticks were in such a way that both can be joined to make one long stick, and this time the bunch of bananas were far more away than the cage. So initially chimpanzee tried with the long stick, but it was in vain. He could not get the bananas, and he started playing with the two sticks, and suddenly while playing the small stick went on inside the long stick and the stick became one, and so now he put that stick out and got the bunch of the bananas. So as you see, the first experiment was simple one because there was only one stick, while in this second it became a moderate or slightly difficult because the chimpanzee needed to join the stick, but he was able to do that and his inside learning happened. Okay, while in the third experiment, what Kohler did was, he experimented with the boxes. He gave 3 boxes to the chimpanzee in a room, and this time he hung the banana to the ceiling. So when chimpanzee was kept in the room, he started jumping towards the ceiling, but it was vain because ceiling was much higher than the chimpanzee can reach. So while doing so, chimpanzee tried many times, but while doing so he saw the boxes and he pulled the one box in the middle of the room where the bunch of the banana was there at the ceiling, and by keeping that box he tried to get the banana, but it was in vain. Then he pulled other 2 boxes also, but that was in also vain, and he then went on to sit and became sad. But after looking at the boxes for some time, what happened was, he was able to stack the boxes on one another, like shown in the diagrams. So at first the chimpanzee was not successful, but after a few minutes he was able to arrange it properly. Then he was able to get the bananas, and he reached the bananas, have his banana. Okay. So here in the experiment, Kohler clearly tries to make us understand that how chimpanzee's early learning helped him to solve his problem by making use of available instrument or tools. So here we see that how chimpanzees were able to use the instruments or tools to solve the current problem. Okay. Also, according to Kohler, the process of solving a problem in a new situation begins with trial and error. Okay. So whenever you are in a situation, the solving of problem becomes with trial and error. But later on with learning, it applies to in solving the problem. So whatever you have learned beforehand, that goes on learning to the other problem. Okay. But according to the psychologist Harlow, Insight cannot take place with past learning. The insight cannot take place with past learning. That is, what you have learned before cannot be called as insight. Why? Insight learning happens regularly in our lives and all around us. It happens continuously. And inventions and innovations alike are often at times of result of insight learning only. So when you see inventions or innovations, they are the often results of insight learning. It is called eureka. Okay. And thus inside learning is also called as out of the box learning or out of the box thinking. Okay. So here we see that learning to solve a problem, if the problem situation is arranged and organized the way, then it takes a closer to the solution, and then by insight problem can be solved. So what we have to remember is learning to solve a problem, if the problem situation is arranged and organized, if the situation is arranged and organized in a proper way, then it takes a closer look of the solution and the insight happens and the problems become solved. So here we complete our second chapter and we are done with our 5